everyone. Welcome back to Stop.Sit.Surrogate with Kennedy and Ellen. We have an amazing guest today. Would you like to please introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Grace, and I am a surrogate out of California.
Oh, we have a California.
Yeah, we're in the same time zone.
I
It's amazing.
so rare.
Thank goodness. Because because usually we're talking to people when it's like their kid's bedtime and I feel so bad, but nobody's ever out here. It's crazy. Okay.
How did you find out about surrogacy?
I guess it's something I always kind of knew about, but it didn't occur to me that it was something that I wanted to do until I was in my mid 30s at least. I knew that people were surrogates for others that couldn't carry their own babies. And the first time it was suggested to me, my mom said, "Oh, your friend is gay and he might want to have a family someday." My friend, it was her friend's son. She said, "My friend wants to have grandchildren. How would you feel about donating an egg and carrying their baby?" And I don't think that that's for me. I don't think I could do egg donation. I don't think that I could do traditional surrogacy where it's your egg and you carry it. Any child of mine, I would want to live with me and raise it. So I just kind of brushed it off as something that I didn't need to do. And then I heard more about women doing it that I actually knew, and I thought more about it. And I loved being pregnant so much, and we were pretty adamant that we were done having our own children. I have two.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, I would really love to experience that again. And then I have a lot of people in my life that have struggled to create a family of their own for one reason or another. And it just kind of all came together in my mind. And I thought, well, I want to do this. I should do this. I think
Good
that
for
it'll
you.
be fulfilling in multiple ways.
Awesome.
No, that's
So I want
amazing.
to touch on one thing, Rick. So you were closer to the age where they're going to cut you at, like, say, no more, like the end age, than you were to the beginning age, right?
Oh, yes, much
Okay.
closer.
Yeah, me too. Like, I literally, that last one, I was like, I turned the age I think I turned 42 and had the baby. Like, was like, okay, you're done. You can't be this anymore. Like, okay, that's fine. But yeah, I wish I would have started way earlier. Wish I would have. But
Yeah. Even though I started later, I still think it was the right time in my life
Yeah.
to be doing
yes.
it. But it made it feel like a little bit more pressure to
Mhm.
execute as soon as possible because I knew that I was going to be getting older, especially this I'm in my second journey. So this second time I felt a little bit of pressure from no one but myself
Yes.
to get it started earlier rather than later.
That
Okay.
makes sense though.
And
Would
how
you
did, go ahead.
know you go? Because my question really should be saved for the end.
Okay. How did you find your agency? So you want to be a surrogate. What do? Start just looking them up on or did somebody give you a referral and say, hey, try this one?
A little bit of both. So I started I didn't even know that I needed an agency. I didn't know what that was or why anyone would want one, but I really didn't know what else to do. So as I was googling surrogacy in general, I learned about the difference between traditional and gestational, knew that gestational was the way I wanted to go, and agencies kept popping up, and so many of them. And then actually the other way that I found out about agencies was I was looking for podcasts, and I don't think that yours was out quite yet.
Probably
And
not.
I came across one from a surrogacy agency in Southern California
Mhm.
and listened to it. And I thought, oh, well, I should contact them because I heard about their podcast and had been listening to it during my working drive time.
There you go.
And it was hard to find an agency. When I started my journey, I knew what I wanted to do. I had looked up the requirements. I understood that I was fairly overweight for the BMI requirements. I believe my BMI was around between 36 and 38 when I started looking, but I had already started the process and the commitment to getting to the BMI requirement within a short period of time. I was working really hard at that. And so I started calling agencies so I could have everything lined up by the time my BMI was in the window that it needed to be. And because of where I was at when I started calling in early 2020, almost
Mhm.
everybody told me to call them back when I had lost the weight.
Oh wow.
And The agency that I went with actually was a referral from someone in my life that had been a surrogate. She used them for their second journey, and her kids had babysat my kids a few times, so we were kind of
Oh,
acquaintances. And
yeah.
she recommended them to me, and they were the only agency out of the 20 or so that I called that said, we want to be a part of your weight loss journey with you. That's part of the process. There's other things that we can work on in the meantime. Clearly, because I told them, like, this was about February, mid to late February of 2020. So I told them where I had started the year at and where I was at already in my weight loss journey. And they said, yeah, you got this. Let us be a part of it, and we'll work on your records and other stuff in the meantime.
Oh, that's
And then
perfect.
COVID hits.
And then COVID hit, yeah, and it threw us off a little bit, but
Okay.
it really, my records were a little bit difficult to get together.
Oh,
My oldest child currently is 15, so she was 12 when we got started, and her records were on paper in a storage facility, and the physician had passed away, so it wasn't anything that they had handy or could collect or anything. So it took a while to get all of that together. I will say that COVID and restrictions on where you could go and
yeah.
doctor's offices and stuff like that did make it a little bit difficult because I had to physically go down there and ask them to please give me my paper records. I need those because they weren't scanning all of them. It felt like they were being kind of lazy about it. So I had to
Huh.
go ask for all of them so I could scan them myself and send them to the agency.
Gotcha.
So it did end up taking some time anyway.
Yeah.
So that accounted for the slowdown with COVID.
Okay.
Can I backtrack for a second? Because I know that it- I don't know if it's the agencies that said it or if it's the clinics and the agencies go off of the clinics, but for the BMI that you were trying to bring it down to, was it like drastic in like you had to I, this is like drastic, not 10. You didn't have to drop 10 BMI, points or whatever, but like what was it with that agency? Because I've seen it be different everywhere.
Yeah, and even I think that things changed really rapidly with BMI requirements just from what I've seen over the almost 4 years now that I've been on surrogacy journeys in general. But I think when I started my research, it was 30. And then in talking to them, it had been updated to 32. And now it does go by really what the clinic wants to
Yeah.
see. And the particular clinic that I'm working with, I'm on a sibling journey. So it's the same clinic this time. I was a little bit worried about my BMI after the first journey and wanted to make sure I was prepared and get down to the BMI required if needed. And they had increased theirs to, I think it's 34.9.
Oh, okay.
So it's a
Okay.
lot different.
I'm
Yeah,
glad to
that's a
hear that
big
that it's a
difference.
little higher because
Yeah.
Yeah.
so many women who would be very, very good surrogates are just locked out of that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even I just feel like my BMI runs high. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's something for other people, but like
Me too.
at the end of 2020, I was the most fit and slim as I have ever been in my adult life. And my BMI was still like right at 30. It wasn't going to
You're
get below that.
kidding.
And I thought there's no way I can lose any more weight.
Yeah.
Um, I guess maybe I pack on the pounds of muscle.
No, see, and that's what I always hate though, is like when it comes to like weight loss and stuff like that, like everybody's body is so different. I don't think
Mhm.
it's fair to base it off of some silly number. Like,
Right.
granted, like, yes, okay, if you have a BMI of 60, that's wildly different. And like, but like I don't know. But it
Yeah, when I'm done with my surrogacy journeys, I'll be excited because I probably won't have to think about my BMI ever again.
oh,
Knock on wood.
what a
Yeah.
dream. And eat anything you want. Um, okay, so wait, Helen, you said that your second journey is a sibling journey. So
Mm.
when it came to your first journey, did you know who you wanted to match with, or did you have any um like wish lists that you like
Yeah.
wanted to do?
I didn't. And that's something I've thought so much more about in listening to your podcast and hearing everyone's stories.
Yeah.
I was very open. I did know that I don't remember giving them a wish list or anything, but just in my mind, I knew that I preferred a family, whether that was a single person or a same-sex couple or a hetero couple. I knew that I wanted some kind of relationship with them in the future. And the ideal relationship to me would be like Facebook friends, like your Facebook friends from high school, where maybe you don't really chat all the time, but you kind of
Yeah.
see what's
Yes.
going on in their lives.
Yes.
Um, I only wanted something more than that if it came organically.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to be like best friends joined at the hip, let's move in together tomorrow kind of situation, because I think we all
Yeah.
need our personal space.
Yeah.
And then I knew that I would prefer a couple that I could communicate with in some way. So
Okay.
if they spoke English in some fashion, whether that's through texting or speaking, or had like a translator, or at least one of them in the couple, if it was a couple, could speak English pretty well, I would prefer that.
There you go.
Yeah. That's
That's
pretty good.
pretty
I mean,
basic.
that's
Yeah.
the basic
Mhm.
necessities of, I think, of what
Mhm.
I would want too. Like, I think I know communication to everyone is not like, high par, but it's really nice to have the ability to not have to go through somebody every single time and be like,
Yeah.
like, this is what's happening with your baby. Like, I don't want to tell, Amy over here, and then she can tell you, and then you'll get back to her, and then she'll get back to me, and like, just a longer process.
Yeah, and I do love my agency and my coordinators that I've had, my case managers. But I'm someone that I like to go straight to the source to work through things. So I really wanted a couple, or like I said, a single person, whoever it might be,
Yeah.
that was really open to communicating clearly and honestly and things like that. I don't
That's
think I
beautiful.
knew how to articulate all that when I
Yeah.
was
Oh,
working
yeah.
with the agency to match. But thinking back, that's what I wanted. And
Mhm.
now that I've listened to other stories, if I had to do it all over again, I think I could make a much more concise wish list. But that's what was in my mind to start with.
Yeah. And
That's
did you get to match with someone? Well, how did matching go? I guess,
yeah.
like, were you given profiles, or was your profile given?
Mm, I guess it was given. I'm not really sure how it worked. It just worked. Like,
Yeah.
again, listening to some of the stories that I've heard on your podcast or in talking to others,
Mhm.
there's much more of a selection process. But
Yeah.
the way it was framed up to me is we have an amazing matchmaker at our agency, and she will
Okay.
find the best match for you.
Yeah.
I actually got preliminarily matched with a male couple from Israel around, I'd say like April, May of 2020. And I
Wow.
really started my journey January 1st of 2020.
Okay.
So they sent me this couple. I don't know if they sent me their profile, but she said they had seen mine and they were very excited about me. And I thought that they both looked like an Israeli George Clooney. They were really beautiful men.
Aw.
And I was
Oh, that
like,
man would
yes,
be
absolutely. Sign me up. I want to be their surrogate. I know nothing
oh,
else about them. I know they speak English. That's great. But they look amazing. And
aw, so
it
cute.
took a while, like I said, to get my records.
Yeah.
And I discovered in the first part of the medical clearance that I had hypothyroid. And so
Oh,
they were getting my medication sorted out and everything. And in the meantime, the couple, I think, was ready to really get things going. And so that match never worked out. And they sent me another couple. They said, we think you're really going to like these guys. They were also from Israel. It was going to be their first baby, but they were looking for someone that they could potentially do a sibling journey with down the road. The communication that they were looking for seemed to line up, and they looked so happy and just so excited to become a family. And I thank goodness every day that the George Clooney's didn't work out, because I could not have asked for better parents, and I
Aw.
wouldn't want to do it with anyone else unless I
see,
had
things
to.
happens for reasons. That's so great. That is so awesome. So you actually you have had a successful journey for them?
Yeah, we had a baby girl
Oh,
in October of 2021. She's going to be 2 pretty soon. I
oh
can't
my
believe it.
gosh. Wow.
Oh, it's gonna be two.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Fun.
So okay, so then how did your journey go? Like, were there
Sounds good.
complications or did you get smooth sailing?
I really feel like it was smooth sailing, other than some of the challenges that came with navigating the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There really were no issues. I didn't have any medical complications of any kind.
Great.
It was my third C-section. I went into it really hoping that I could try for a VBAC. Both of my children were C-sections. So it wasn't a complication of any kind, but I would
Right.
call it a disappointment because
Okay.
I really wanted to try for that just to have that experience.
Yeah.
But once presented with all of the pros and the cons, it really was the right thing to do for everyone's safety
Yeah.
to have a C-section again.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was that, but other than that, it just went really well. I couldn't have asked for better. Again, even considering the pandemic, I'd say
Yeah.
just navigating things with the parents' travel and where they would stay. There were some hiccups at the hospital during the delivery with just how they would be received at the hospital and how they would be able to navigate the first couple of days with their baby. That was a bit of a challenge, but
Oh.
health wise, we were all great.
Okay.
What
So
was the challenge?
yeah, go ahead. Hmm.
What was the challenge?
Um, I don't know how other places really do it, but the place that I live, where I'm from, a lot of surrogate or a lot of doctors are not surrogate friendly. So they don't see surrogates for the pregnancy, and finding a doctor and a hospital that would deliver a surrogate pregnancy was a little bit of a challenge. My hospital and my doctor were an hour away. So that was a little bit frustrating. And then at the time, I don't know if it was a COVID restriction or why they didn't do this, but there's no place for the parents to stay in the hospital. So, and they don't have an old fashioned nursery. I don't know
Right.
if you're
Right.
familiar with
Yeah.
like the babies
Right.
used to go to the
When
I
nursery all
am.
the time.
Yes.
Yeah. So they don't have that. They only have the NICU. So
right.
the baby, once I delivered the baby, I got to say hi to her really quickly. And then they took her to the NICU, and the parents were allowed to visit her whenever they wanted, they said before we went into the delivery. But then in real life, they kind of like shooed the parents away in the night to go sleep at a hotel. And then they came
Oh,
back in the morning, and it just was not the best experience for them
that's so
for
sad.
those first 24 hours. And then for sure, for COVID restrictions, we were not allowed to see each other at the hospital. I
Okay.
wasn't allowed to see the baby until we went home. And then the parents, they made an exception and they let them come visit me in my room for a little bit. But other than that, we just didn't have any contact at the hospital once the baby was delivered. So that was rough for me. And then for them, for their first 24 to 48 hours with their baby, it was not what they had envisioned.
Right. That
No.
stinks. Even if there was COVID, they could have given them a room. They could have
Yeah.
given them their own area. Even if you guys had to be separate, they could have put them and let them start parenting right away. The baby didn't need to be in the NICU, is my understanding, but that's the
Right.
only place for the baby to have gone because they didn't give them a room. That's
Yeah.
sad. That really
They
is.
did get they got kind of a private area in the
Mhm.
NICU, and I thought,
Okay.
"Oh, well, all things considered, that's nice," but you're right, it would have been much nicer for them to have a room.
Yeah.
And I used to be a baby photographer in the hospital taking newborn photos, and I would see, like, adoptions. I didn't have any knowledge of if anything was like a surrogacy, but there were times where the parents didn't deliver the baby, but there was a room for them, and they would be in there, and I would go in and offer pictures and things like that. So it just was weird to me that they didn't have that available at my hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
For
is weird,
your
especially
for,
now, these
for
days and
this
age.
journey, are
Yeah.
you going to the same hospital?
No. So
Okay.
it really stinks. That hospital has since changed their guidelines, and they do now give the parents a room. However, there's not a doctor that I could find that will work at that hospital. So I had to find a new doctor and go to a new hospital. And it's a little bit frustrating. This will be my fourth delivery and my fourth hospital, but I haven't moved anywhere. I've lived here
Wow.
this whole time. But as long as we're getting the best care possible, that's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
That's all
Did
that's most important to me.
does this new hospital allow them to have their own room?
They do,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. And how
I
far away is it for you? Do you have to travel a ways?
It's not that far. It's about 25 minutes, but
Okay.
it's still not it's
Yeah,
not in my town. There's a
correct.
hospital 5 minutes away where they don't see surrogates.
That seems discriminatory. That's a whole nother podcast, but I'm having issues with it over here. I'm really boiling mad about that, but okay. Hmm.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. That's
I
okay.
mean, I've personally experienced that once when I just needed to go, like, like they're like, oh, can you go get a pap before like you go to medical? And the doctor who's under my insurance was like, nope, I'm not going to deal with surrogates. And I was like, I'm not even, like, I wasn't even pregnant. I was just trying to become a surrogate. And she was like, no. And I'm just like, this is like, that was my first experience that doctors would say no to people that are literally just pregnant, like, or just trying to
Yeah.
become pregnant. Like, why does it matter
Yeah,
if
I
it's
guess it
fine or
has to
not?
do with billing. Like I've asked why,
Oh,
and
okay.
I guess it has to do with billing issues that they've had in the past where maybe insurance wouldn't cover and then they
Mm,
just don't get paid because the surrogate doesn't want to pay and then the parents aren't they didn't know they were going to have to pay it. Just I'm sure it gets complicated and I
Yeah.
understand that. But I have great surrogate friendly insurance. And even with the doctor I delivered with before, so we did get pregnant already at a transfer in March. And unfortunately, we had a second trimester loss. But prior to the loss, I was trying to get back in with my OB from last time because I liked the experience. I liked the doctor. They had changed their process with the parents at the hospital. So that's really what I wanted. And I was begging them to make an exception because my insurance, like they had no issues with me. It's all the same insurance, same everything. Will you let me try it again? And still they said no.
wow.
So
Very
bizarre. But they
interesting.
saw you for the first one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No? Yeah? Okay. Odd. Super odd.
Yep.
very odd. Grace, we do not have to touch on this, and I can totally cut this out. Are you willing to touch on your second trimester loss?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I think it's important to share. And I don't know if there's something going on that there's more second trimester losses now, or I don't know if it's that we just hear more about them because women are more open about it and we have more visibility to others on social media. But I feel
Yeah.
like there have been several second trimester losses in our community lately.
Yeah.
And with people I know having their own babies too. And
Yeah.
I think it's something that doesn't get talked about. And I just feel it sounds cheesy, but I feel this calling to share with
Oh,
others because I wish that there had been more people for me to lean on. Not that there were some really great
oh,
people that reached out to me, but I think that supporting each other through situations like that is so important. And
So important.
I've never had a miscarriage of my own child. And I think that regardless of whether I've had that experience or not, losing someone else's child is its own situation and has its
Yes,
own difficulties to navigate. And I'd love to
absolutely.
be able to help somebody going through that.
So first off, how are you doing with it?
yeah.
I'm doing well. It was really difficult in like when it happened, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. So what
It,
month did it occur? You may have said it and I didn't hear
I
what
was
month.
16 weeks.
And so what month was that? April, March?
Four going into five. Oh, month of the year.
Yeah, sorry, month of the year. Oh, sorry.
That was in June,
Oh,
June 16th,
Of 2022.
23. It was just a couple
just
months
right now,
ago.
like 3 months. Like, oh
Yeah.
my
Oh
God.
my gosh,
I'm
bless
so
your heart.
sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, it was
Wow.
really hard and you
So,
don't expect it at that
no.
point for sure.
Mm-mm.
No.
So how did you
Yeah, how did you
how
know?
did you
Like, was
know? Right.
something wrong? Like, did you feel like something was wrong? Did the doctor say, oh, hey, something's showing up different on the ultrasound?
Yeah.
No, I know that home Dopplers are controversial and maybe this is why, but
Mhm.
I had been in the habit of checking on the Doppler, listening to the heartbeat morning and night. It was just really reassuring for me.
Yeah.
Everything had been going perfectly. All of our scans had been normal. I had done the NIPT test, and all of those potential complications had come back as normal. Everything was fine.
Yeah.
And I had been listening to the heartbeat morning and night, and I listened to it in the morning on the 15th, and it was great. Found it right away in the spot it's usually in. And I went to check it that evening and could not find it. And I thought, well, he's getting bigger. Maybe he's moved. So I tried standing up straight for a while. I tried doing some yoga poses, like some downward dog and like hanging upside down, all these things. And I still could not find it. So I thought, well, I'm not going to freak out. Again, he could have moved, something could have happened. So I waited until the morning and I still couldn't find it. And that's really when I started to worry.
Yeah.
And I had an appointment coming up the following Monday, and that was going to be a busy day for me anyway. So I called them to ask them to move it to that day. It was a Friday.
Yeah.
And we went in and they confirmed it, and
Oh,
there was no reason that they could give me why it happened,
right.
but it just is something that happened, and it was so awful.
Oh, so
Oh,
how I mean, I hate to even ask, but how do you relay that information to the intended parents? Like that's got to be the hardest phone call because they're not here, right?
Right, they're in Israel, and I knew that it was the middle of the night when I went for my appointment. And
Wow.
I think that a lot of people maybe would relay that through the agency,
Yeah.
but because I have such a great relationship with the parents, it was really important to me to make that phone call,
Yeah.
um, or FaceTime call. And so I did. I FaceTime them in the middle of the night. They did not answer right away. Um, I did check in with my agency first just to loop them in and let
Yeah.
them know and tell them that I wanted to tell the parents myself. I didn't want them reaching out before I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
So they called me back while I was still at the office, and it was only one. It's a male couple, so it was only one of the dads. So I told him I needed to have them both on the phone. So he went and got the other one, and they called me back, and I told them, and one of them works in assisted reproduction.
Oh,
So they both were definitely devastated,
yeah.
but I think that that helped with the understanding. You never really understand
no.
why
Mhm.
something like this would happen.
Right.
But the whole time it has been these things happen. We know, we don't blame you. We're not upset.
Oh.
And
Oh,
so
sweetheart.
Did that,
compassionate.
I mean, this is a two-part question. So one, did that take any load off of how you were feeling? The fact that, oh my, like, they're being comforting, they're being understanding, they know that it wasn't
Sympathetic. Hmm.
me, like,
I'll say yes, but I don't know any different.
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
I can only imagine if what it would be like if someone blamed me.
Mm-hmm.
I still, to an extent, I try very hard not to blame myself, but I still
You.
replay all of my actions that week. What was I doing? What was going on in my life? How could this have
Mm.
happened?
Grace, you can't. You
Yeah.
I
can't. I
know.
know you can't, but and you do it, but not your fault.
Yeah.
Not. It,
So
Yeah.
their empathy was, it's why we're so close.
yeah.
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 Absolutely.
So then the next phase of that is you have to give birth. You have to relinquish that fetus, obviously. Do they induce you?
That was the plan.
Oh,
So we uh we went to we were in the clinic when they couldn't find the heartbeat either on Doppler or on the ultrasound machine they had there.
Yeah.
So they sent us across the street to the hospital there to have a more high resolution scan and see if they could figure out why it happened, when it had happened,
Yeah.
confirm that the baby had passed. So they took us over there, and the hospital was so nice. They
Oh,
were
good.
very understanding. They took me to a nice quiet room. They brought me water. They were expecting me when I walked in.
Mm.
And I had held it together at the office. I was very upset when we were watching the ultrasound, and I that baby's face in that moment when we were not finding the heartbeat will never leave my mind.
Oh,
That was really hard to see.
I
So
want to cry right now. Shit. Oh my
I
God.
held it all together while we left the clinic, and then I lost it in the car on the way across the street. And then my husband,
That's
I
what I
know that
asked.
he was with me by
Okay, I
chance.
was
He's
gonna
never
ask.
gotten to go to a doctor appointment before, but he happened to be with me that day.
Okay, good.
And because it was the closest spot, he parked in the like new mom and baby parking spot. And I screamed, "You have to move. You cannot park in this spot. I'm not bringing home a baby. Don't park here." And I made him move the car. And then I got out of the car and I just lost it. And he escorted me in. And like I said, the hospital was so nice and they knew why I was there and took me straight to a room.
Yeah.
And then they told me to come back the next day to be induced. So
Mm.
I went home. I
Mm.
asked for some Valium so I could get some sleep.
Yeah. God.
And I went home and I packed my bag. And in the morning, like when you're going to deliver a baby, I put my bag in the car and we drove to the hospital and I made arrangements for my children so I could be gone for, a day or two. We had no idea how long it would take.
Yeah.
And we got to the hospital and they immediately told me that they had been looking at my scans before I got there and that I was probably going to have a C-section. And I was like, no, I'm not having a C-section. You cannot cut me open. My fear was that I would be disqualified from trying again. And that was
Mm-hmm.
one of the first things out of my mouth when I called the parents to tell them was that I want to try again. This was not it. And I want us to be able to bring another baby, to be a
Yeah.
sibling for your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not want to be disqualified for having another C-section.
Right.
And so I had to wait for the on-call doctor to come in. I won't get into too many details, but it was the worst hospital experience of my life.
Oh God.
They were not very kind. I was stuck in a room for 4 hours and they came to check on me never. The doctor came in to talk to me to tell me basically that I was going to end up going home at the end of the day or whenever we were done, and that I would not be having the baby that day, that they didn't know what the future held for how we would deliver the baby.
What?
Mm. I was told that I probably wasn't going to have a C-section,
That's good.
but that I probably wasn't going to be induced either, and that they would be doing a D&E.
Well,
But
a D&E, not a DNC.
Oh.
right. So it's really graphic, but I guess D&E involves a lot more suction
Oh,
and D&C involves a lot more scraping.
okay.
So they told me they were probably going to try for a D&E, but they were going to have to figure out where to do that because, again, I live in this middle of California with all kinds of crazy stuff going on. And because of abortion law changes, that's not what they said, but that's kind of what was
Oh
implied.
my gosh. Was
They
that
don't
after
do
Roe v. Wade flipped?
Had
Was
to have
that
been.
Yes,
This
this
was
was
June.
this was in
Yeah.
June. So they told me that most of the doctors in our area don't do D&Es.
But
So they were
I
gonna
didn't
have
think California followed that ruling.
I didn't think so either. And again, they did not say that that's why, but
Right.
that's kind of what was implied and where I could gather like what reason would you not do that?
correct?
And that was what I could kind of get from that. And so it was really frustrating. And long story short, I spent an entire week carrying the baby while they figured out how to best deliver him from me because they were worried that I had placenta previa that I did not know about
Oh.
prior to the loss, and the placenta was sitting in the same area that my C-section scars are in. And so they
Mm.
were concerned that I had another condition called placenta accreta, where
Yes.
the placenta attaches and or infiltrates your scars and it doesn't let go when the baby's delivered, however that might
Mm.
be, and you could bleed out. So
Yes.
They did
Wow.
want me to have a D&E so I could be in a surgical setting in the event that I did start to bleed, and then I had to go to a lot of specialists to rule out as best as possible whether I had placenta accreta, and the whole time I was just so scared that I wasn't gonna be able to try again
Right,
because of any complication that might have come up.
Yeah.
And
right,
then it was hard in general to walk around all week
We
carrying
right.
a baby that
Yeah.
I knew had passed and just being so sad about it and so many emotions that you go through in
Mm.
general with a loss, but also
Yeah,
not knowing the future of my own health and then
right. That's
not
very
having the
dangerous for you,
parents.
Grace. That was very dangerous for you to let them to let that continue on. Like very dangerous for you, your health,
Yeah,
your well-being. Yeah, I don't get that. I'm at a loss. I really am. It doesn't make sense. Did he spontaneously abort or did they end up doing the DNA?
I had to have the D&E. We were able to do that 1 week after we found
God
out about the
almighty.
loss.
Yeah.
Um, and
Oh,
just to circle back to the parents,
yeah.
I've
Oh.
they were so worried about me. They didn't share so much about it in that moment because I think they didn't want to cause me any additional grief or
Yeah.
being upset. But um, later, they shared and the agency shared that their main concern that whole week, all that time, yes, they were upset that they lost their baby, but they were so worried about me and what would happen to me. And again, to have parents that that would be their main concern
Right.
is, I still can't believe it. I really appreciate them.
Little slices of
Absolutely.
heaven. Yeah. Gosh. Oh my God.
I just want to say that I'm so sorry that this
Yeah.
happened, but this was an experience that you personally had to experience. And two, that it went on longer than it needed to. Like the
Yeah.
the mental toll that
Hmm.
it probably took on you. Because like right, like you said, like there are people right now that are going through second trimester loss,
Hmm.
and it's so sad. um, because it's not something that's talked about. And I honestly was so naive to
So
the fact that
sad.
that was a thing. And then you had briefly in the past mentioned your story, and now other people are coming forward. And I'm really, really sorry that anybody has to go through this. And I
Horrible.
appreciate you telling this with such grace, and helping because I
Yeah.
think I think it's important to talk about now. And this,
So Grace, who is your obviously your husband, of course he is, but did the agency are they behind you? Are they supportive during this whole thing? And are they like, hey, we're getting you in, we're gonna find a place? Like they're on it, yes?
They, as far as we're gonna find you a place and everything, if I had needed that, yes, they would have done that for me. My agency is amazing.
Okay, good. So
But
glad.
really they let the doctors handle that. And I do
Okay.
want to say it really sucked to have to carry that baby for the extra week and having to go to all the appointments I went to and when all was said and done, I wound up at Stanford. I know if you're in California, you've heard of it.
Wow.
Maybe you've heard of
Yes.
it if you're not in California, but it's one of the top healthcare university facilities in the nation. That's where I wound up to see a specialist at the end of the week
Good.
to do everything they could to rule out the placenta accreta. And then that's where I had my procedure.
Okay.
And I could not have asked for better care there,
Oh,
and
I'm
if
so
all of
glad.
those roads were to lead me there for the best care ever, then
Okay.
I'm grateful for it. It
yeah,
was hard, but what if something had happened to me and I
right,
wasn't with a specialist? What if I had had placenta accreta? I really appreciate even the doctor that I did not enjoy very much on that Saturday where I thought I was gonna go be induced.
Yeah.
I appreciate that she went the extra mile to really make sure that I got the best care possible. They coulda just induced me and
yeah, they
something
Right.
could have.
happened. Or if they did a D&E near where I live, they coulda just sent me in for that without really investigating and something could have happened. So
Right.
it happened for a reason. It was the
It
right way.
did. It
Yeah.
did. Gosh.
Um, can I ask can I ask advice for others? Like how did you like honestly, how did you navigate this? Like how like emotionally, physically, mentally, like do you have advice for others who are going through it?
Number 1, I wanna acknowledge that it's hard.
Yeah.
It is the hardest thing that I have ever gone through that had to do with me. Like,
Mm.
I've been a support person to someone else who's gone through something extremely difficult like that, but it's never happened to me, and I never thought something like that could ever happen to me. Maybe I had that, like, teenager invincibility syndrome.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't take it for granted ever, but I didn't think that something like that would happen to me. And it's hard, especially when you get to that point, 16 weeks, and you don't
Right.
expect it. And even
Right.
I had been chatting with an acquaintance. We have children that go to school together. So we were chatting about something, and she shared that she had gone through a couple of second trimester losses in the last couple years, and was talking about my own pregnancy, and I didn't want to tout anything, but in my mind I was thinking, gosh, I'm really sorry that happened to you, but look at me, I'm at 16 weeks and that's not going to happen to me. And then it
Mhm.
did, just a
Yeah.
few weeks after that conversation. And it's hard, especially, I think it's okay and expected to think that that won't happen to you when you get to that point.
Yeah.
So I just want to acknowledge that it is hard. I think that
Yeah.
as a surrogate, it can be extremely isolating. Even with the relationship that I have with my intended parents,
Mhm.
it's isolating. They're not here. They're
Right.
going through their own grieving process, and I have to respect that. I'm going through my own grieving process, and they're concerned, but they're respecting my space too. And while we're all respecting each other's space, it still can be very isolating.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
I think that professional help is very important. So I do really appreciate that my agency put me in touch with someone
Oh,
that they work with. They don't work for the agency, but they gave me a couple of choices of professional therapists that I could talk to. The ones they partner with for the psych evals, and
Okay.
one is a former surrogate herself. And so having that person to talk through is really helpful. I think professional help in general is the way to go,
yeah.
Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
it was hard for me to comprehend whether I was taking it too hard. Like, this wasn't my baby.
Right.
Am I taking this too hard? Am I reacting the wrong way? Day after day, it was hard to understand. Am I getting better or am I not? I would have good days, and then I would have days where I couldn't put on clothes without breaking down because I don't fit into anything I own. I don't need to be wearing maternity clothes, but that's all that's in my closet right now. I don't fit into my regular
Mhm.
clothes. They're all packed away. I don't want to go shopping because I might try again. And what if I get pregnant soon? It just were so many thoughts going through my mind, and I had to make
Right.
sure I wasn't actually crazy.
Oh
So
my
talking to
gosh.
a professional was really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the advice that I would give, and just
Yeah.
give yourself the time and the space to grieve in your own way, because we're all
Absolutely.
different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know some people say that surrogate Facebook groups are toxic, and I think that some people in them can be. And I
Mhm.
had just joined a transfer group, and so many people in there were really supportive, but some told me that they had seen I shared a lot in my Instagram stories, and several told me that I was taking it way too hard and they didn't think that I would get approved to try again. And I thought, well, am I taking it too hard? I think that I'm being normal. I think that I'm just sharing, and we all go through things differently. So I think we just need to respect each other and our grieving process. I think
Absolutely.
if you see someone that's like months past the event and is still really struggling, I would reach out to that person and ask them, how can I help? What
Yeah.
what resources can I direct you to? Because at that point, it's probably concerning, but a
Yeah.
weekend,
Ka-
we're all going to be in a different place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jiminy crickets.
I would just like to touch on the people that said you're taking it too hard, or like people like that that feel like they have the right to
To
say
say
how
that.
others
Mhm.
can
Yeah.
feel.
Right.
That I just, I'm kind of dumbfounded that
Yeah.
someone wouldn't have the empathy for a fellow surrogate. And that's because look what that made you do. You don't even know these people, and look what that made you do. That made you rethink,
Think.
wait,
Mhm.
hold on, and now I'm second guessing myself, like, am I crazy? Am I taking it too hard? Like, all these things go through your head that you don't need. Just you don't need that right at that moment. Like if you have nothing nice, that's my PSA. If you have nothing nice to say, just don't say it. Like,
But don't you think that in the cover of Facebook and the cover of Instagram, if you had a bunch of surrogates lined up in front of you and you were at a meeting or a social or getting coffee, I don't think any one of them would have said that to your face.
no, they would.
But in the darkness or the cloud of this Instagram where you can just put anything, you don't have to be held accountable. And I'm not saying let's slap their hand. I'm just saying, people, before you say stuff like that, double think it, reverse it. You're in that position. Just think, would you like somebody saying that to you? Like you said, Grace, you all have to go through your own time and your own grief.
Yeah.
That just annoys me that people feel that they can just go, oh, you're taking it too hard. You were getting the help you needed and you were dealing with it in your own time.
Yeah.
And you're talking about it. I think that's therapeutic. I really appreciate the depths with which you've gone to talk about it to us, because my heart's just so heavy over here. Just, I don't know if I could have walked the walk. I did lose a twin, but it was 10 weeks. And I'm not saying that that lessens the loss, but
It's
I don't know.
different for sure.
Yeah,
And it,
it's
it
way
could be
different.
different at any point in time
Yes,
and
absolutely.
different for any person. I think
So,
somebody, if they had that opinion, they could have reached out to me privately to share, like, hey, I'm worried about you. What do
yeah,
you
but
need?
yeah,
And that's a polite
that's a polite
way
way.
to put it.
Yes.
But Grace, you're also such like a sweet human being that
Mhm.
I wish everybody thought and spoke the way that you did, because
Yeah.
you do it with such grace. Ha!
Mhm.
That's funny, your name.
Yeah. So did they have to do a death certificate? Was it 16 weeks or did they fudge that a little bit?
No, from what I understand, I think it's a state by state basis, but in California, it's either 20 or 22 weeks that they
Okay.
do death certificates.
Okay.
So no, they did not. And we went through, I always consulted the parents. I thought about, do we want to give him a name? Do you guys have a name you want for him? I felt so sad, this poor baby
Yeah.
not having a name.
Yeah.
Um, I thought about where his remains would go. It's very difficult to get remains out of the country.
Yeah.
So they asked for the hospital to take care of that part. And just all these things go through your head, like the death certificate too, like what happens?
Yeah.
But no, at that point in time, there's no death certificate.
Okay.
Was
Oh,
all of
Just a
that so
just
so
a
not,
stamp on our hearts forever.
right?
yeah.
Such a huge loss. Did they have? And if I'm delving too much, you let me know. Did anyone do like a little bit of not a celebration of life, but just celebration of him? Uh, a memorial, anything? But I know there's no death certificate, but I don't know. Did you just do that privately?
There was no like ceremony.
No,
The
yeah.
the day I can't remember if it was the day that I got word from the fertility clinic that we were good to try again once they'd reviewed my records, or if it
Oh,
was the day my OB cleared me.
Okay.
The parents reached out to me and they let me know that that was the day that they felt they could truly grieve and start to move on. Because again, they had been so worried about me. And so getting that word from the doctor that kind of like that chapter is closed, everybody's good, we can move forward now. They asked me if I had any more pictures that I could share or anything so that they could spend some time really grieving. So it wasn't necessarily on my end, though they did include
Got
me
you.
in that way just by looping me in and sharing
Very
their
sweet.
feelings. I had mailed them a card from Stanford while we were up there.
Okay.
Um, for the procedure, and I had put in pictures that I had, just my favorite ultrasound pictures. I was worried to send all of them because it's Israel and going so far internationally. What if something happened to them?
Yeah.
But I did send them the hard copies of the most recent really good ultrasounds. And it took so long for them to get the card, and it had the wrong address on it, unfortunately. But eventually they got it. So that was really exciting. But it
Good.
just kind of reopened their thoughts again.
Yeah.
And then because I thought it had gotten lost in the mail because it took so long and because I had accidentally put the wrong address on it, I sent them a
So,
duplicate. I tried to rewrite what I had written the first time and I found the same
Oh.
card. And then I had gotten them a new one anyway. I had Stanford, I asked them to take, they told me they were doing 3D ultrasounds when they were doing all my scans to rule out the Accreta. So I
yes.
asked them, I said, I don't want to look at it right now, but can you please make me a 3D picture of the baby's face that I can give to the parents so that they can have that? And they put it in an envelope for me, and I wasn't even able to touch the envelope for several weeks, but I wanted to make sure that the parents got it, and they asked me like, "Hey, do you have that? Can we have that?" Um,
Oh.
so I made them a new card, and I looked. It was a very cute picture. It wasn't 3D like we think of with like the dimensional face, but it was a really good
Picture.
profile picture of the baby.
Good.
And so I sent that with all the other hard copies that I had and
Mm.
sent them a new card, and that was kind of our way to move forward and
All
close
right.
that together.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So,
Thank you again. I
yeah,
know you've said it several times, but
so
that's
very painful.
it's a hard topic to talk about. And so
Hmm.
thank you.
So where you said now you're moving forward. So where are you in the sibling journey now? Let's talk happy. Where are we now?
Yeah. Yeah. So to make your heart much less heavy, Ellen, we are moving forward,
Yay.
and I got word that we could move on
Good.
several weeks ago from the fertility clinic after they reviewed my records and everything. And that was such a huge relief
Yeah.
just to know that they felt like we looked good to move forward.
Yeah.
And then they did ask me to come in for a repeat saline ultrasound. I
Okay.
didn't have to do a full like medical screening and everything, but they just wanted to make sure there weren't any abnormalities on the
Yeah.
ultrasound. So I went in and did that last week, actually,
Okay.
just over a week ago. And we got our transfer date by the end of last week. So we're so excited. We'll be transferring. I had the choice between November 1st and November 8th, but the first is my son's birthday, and I just don't want to be gone on his birthday. So
Yeah.
we are moving forward. I've never been pregnant like that in the summer, like full on pregnant in the summer. So
Right.
That'll be fun because baby will be born August.
Would
yeah,
that be
August.
August? Okay. All right.
The hot summer months in California.
Yeah.
Lots of
But
cool time.
it'll be great. It'll be
Yeah.
nice to have some nice pool days.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, it'll be a good time.
Wear cuter maternity clothes, little dresses, little
Oh,
shortsies.
I have so many dresses. I still I'm not, I don't know if you watch The Office. I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious.
Yes.
So
I love
Yes.
that line.
I have not, I'm in my office right now and
Yeah.
I have that saying on the wall over there.
Oh, that's
Um,
so cute.
but I have not taken my maternity clothes out of my closet because
Good
I
girl.
thought,
I will.
If I take them out, is that like karma? Is it all gonna just not
Yeah.
work out if I
I
take
get
them
you.
out of my closet? So I've left all my maternity clothes out. I've just been making do with like 5 different items, and
Aw,
I can't
you're
wait
cute.
to
Yeah,
get it all going again.
that'll be awesome. So do they know if what they already have eggs ready? Is I obviously because it's November is your transfer. Are
Yeah,
they
they
doing it?
had going into the whole process, I think they had 9
Oh,
total
wow.
embryos. They
Wow.
used the same egg donor, anonymous egg donor, for both dads so that the
Oh,
siblings could be
yay.
biologically related.
Love
Nice.
that.
Um, and I can't remember what ratio of girls and boys they each had.
Okay.
Since they've had a girl already, the first time they kind of left it up to chance, like, hey, embryologist, just pick the best one.
Oh,
And we'll go with whatever it is. So that made for super fun. The first journey, they didn't want to know who the dad was
okay.
until the birth.
Okay.
Um, I will say when we did the 3D, like the good facial 3D ultrasound
Yeah.
of baby girl, the first journey, as soon as her face popped up on the screen, I was like, oh, I don't know if I could show them that because they will figure it out right away. She looks
Really?
just like her biological dad.
How fun.
But they chose just the best embryo. It turned out to be a girl. We got to have a virtual gender reveal party, which was so fun.
Oh, fun.
And then they did end up figuring out who the biological dad
Yeah.
was through the pre-birth order prior to delivery.
Oh,
Okay.
And so this time they were choosing a boy
Yeah.
from the other dad.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
I'm fairly certain we haven't connected on this one topic yet, but I'm fairly certain that they do still have boy embryos from the other dad.
Okay. Awesome. Wow. Well, we're like first week out of September, so it's not that far. October. So,
you'll start your meds soon.
right. Are you doing
Yeah,
injections, orals? What do you got going? Do you know?
I feel like my clinic does everything. And I was listening to your medications podcast
Yeah.
over the weekend,
Oh,
and I was thinking, gosh, everybody does it so different, but I'm cool with everything. Give me
really?
all the things
Right.
because
Good for
it
you.
works
Yeah.
for me and
Right.
I'm fine with it. So we'll start with Lupron
Yeah.
and then estrogen injections,
Okay.
progesterone injections.
Mm.
Usually they've had me do a Z-Pack and prednisone right before the delivery
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
delivery, but before the
Transfer. I knew what you
transfer.
Yeah.
meant.
Yeah. And then progesterone suppositories starting, I think they start the day of the transfer.
There you go.
Oh, and baby aspirin.
Yes.
Always baby aspirin. So you're cool with suppositories. You're one of those people that are like, I can do it.
I Yes,
Okay.
I really don't have a problem. They haven't been that messy for me. I don't know if it's just
Yeah.
the kind that my clinic prescribes.
Your body
Yeah.
could also just absorb it very
Right.
well.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it works for me, so bring it on. Let's
Do
do
it.
all the things to make it happen the right way. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm fine with it.
Grace, who gives you your shots? You or do you have a family member do it?
It's just me. I have offered for all of them to try it. My kids
Love
are
it.
15 and 12, so
Yeah.
at this point I'm like, "Hey, you want to give it a shot?"
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And they're like, "No, no, no, you go ahead." And then I'm so afraid, I hope
Love
my
it.
husband doesn't listen to this, but I'm so afraid that he will get nervous and
Oh,
poke me weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I just I do it myself.
Good for
I
you.
feel good about it.
Yeah.
good for
Good for you.
you.
I'm a control freak. I had to do all my own. I was like, oh, nobody else is doing them. Me. If I mess up, I mess up. If I bleed, I bleed. That's on me. I can't blame anybody.
Yeah. And I feel like I have a good routine. Like I
Yeah.
know
Good.
I've tried a few different ways. I've tried the all heat, I've tried ice and heat. I got this little it's called a buzzy and
Oh,
it's like a it's for injections, but it's made
okay.
for kids and you put it on the injection site and it vibrates really hard. And so it just like tricks the mind to think about the vibration versus the injection. I don't really use
Really?
that anymore. I'll probably try it again when I first start, but I kind of quit halfway through this last time because I thought well, I know already. It's not the injection that hurts.
Yeah.
It's the
No.
amount of medication that you're
Correct.
sticking in there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because I was so much more fit the first time. Like I'm still fairly in shape, but I was really super fit the first time I did my first journey. I don't know if that's the difference, but this last time I got the hugest nasty knots. The
Right.
sides of my legs are still numb from the
Oh,
injections from before. So
wow.
it's not it's fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah. It'll be fine.
It'll all work out. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and then when on that podcast, Rachel was saying how like there's that thing now that like you can like put the
Oh, yeah.
injection and like you couldn't bribe me enough with any type of food, any type of dessert. I don't care what it is. I couldn't I just can't give myself a shot. Can't do it. It's more of
No.
the I think you're right though. It's not so much the injection hurts. For me, it's definitely a mental state of mind. It's like, there's a needle, because I'll go get a tattoo any day of the week, but like putting a shot in me is like a whole different
Hmm.
situation. Like the medication. Mm.
Yeah. And a few times this last time, because I had those giant knots, I'm pretty sure I hit a knot a couple
Oh, it
times.
hurts so bad.
And it is the worst, like down your spine,
Yeah.
hot, singeing pain.
Or
But it's so
dang.
worth it, right?
Right?
It's
It is.
Absolutely.
telling ourselves that.
It's so worth
Absolutely.
it. But those, man, I know, I wish they gave you more areas that you could give yourself a shot, because you run out of area very quickly when they decide to like develop these like golf ball, tennis ball knots. It's like,
Yeah.
so I only can shoot into the knot now. Like it's no longer, yeah. Oh my
Well,
gosh, I
I
hate
know you can do your thigh too, but no,
it.
I can't do that. I
Okay.
Gosh, no, I
try.
wasn't able to do thighs. That must be
Uh-uh.
something in these last couple decades.
Yeah. I haven't
For
been told that I
for
could do my thigh.
progesterone and an estrogen, which one? Both?
I've heard I did see a surrogate on Instagram that did her injections in her thigh, and I just the
Huh.
thought of I don't know.
I'd
I work
rather,
out, so my
yeah,
quads are pretty developed, and I just can't imagine
Yeah.
injecting
yeah.
that
I
much
would rather my
medication
butt.
into my
Yeah,
quad. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Got you.
thanks.
Huh.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Well, I guess that's a positive that they're coming up with other body parts that you can put these long ass needles with all the medication in. That's a positive for sure,
Yeah.
Gail. Yeah.
Grace, is there any advice that you would give to a first-time surrogate?
Do your research,
Yeah.
number 1.
Mhm.
I know I kinda touched on this at the beginning, the kinda couple that you're looking for or person, whoever you want to be matched with,
Yeah.
I think really knowing what you're looking for, I didn't, and I feel really lucky that I got what I didn't know I wanted,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but looking back and hearing other stories and things like that, I really could make a different wish list. Like I'm 99.9% sure I really would prefer a male couple if I ever had to rematch or if I was going to do it over for whatever reason.
Okay.
I loved having a male couple. It never occurred to me the state of mind that an intended mother could be working through and all the different emotions and how
Yeah.
that connection works, especially not only with someone that's going to get pregnant with their baby, but who has had the opportunity to carry babies already. I think that that can be very um it could be something that takes a lot of finessing and navigating
Yeah.
Yes.
that relationship and there's already so much that goes into the process of your emotions and what you are navigating on your own as a surrogate. I think thinking about what you're looking for in who your intended parents are
Yeah.
is pretty big because that's going to add another layer of what you're navigating throughout your journey.
Very
So
good. Very good
Great
advice.
advice.
It's
that
true.
would be the biggest advice.
Yeah. No, it's great advice. It's great advice. Is
A lot of
there,
time, first time surrogates, we talked about this before, are just like gung ho, I don't care who, just give me
yeah,
anybody. And then that can be a recipe for disaster. It could. I'm not saying it is, but it could.
you got a 50-50 chance?
You got, oh, sometimes not even 50-50. Like you, way back when, first time surrogate, like they handed me who I was going to be connected with. I didn't get a say at all. And one time it worked and one time it didn't. So it was like, huh,
Hmm.
that's interesting. Yeah. It's just an extra layer that you have to deal with. It's not, can be not pleasant sometimes.
For sure.
Really
Uh,
appreciate
Yeah.
everything that
Yeah,
you've
no, really.
that you've opened yourself up to talk about. It's very important right now, and I think it's really important that this gets out sooner, because I keep seeing this happening. I just saw it to another fellow surrogate, and so I think that I don't want them to feel like so isolated.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to
Of course.
share.
Yeah.
Thank you
And I
for,
do just want to put out there, I love helping others. I think everyone that's a surrogate loves helping others. That's why we do this.
Yeah.
And I love making new friends.
Mhm.
So if I think you're going to put my Instagram handle on there, but
Yeah.
if
But yeah,
anyone wants to reach out to me, if you're going through something difficult with surrogacy yourself, or you just want another compassionate, understanding surrogate to befriend, then hit me up on Instagram. We're all in this together, and I'd love to be your buddy. I call them my Instagram buddies whenever I'm talking to my husband about my surrogacy friends I've met on Instagram. My Instagram buddies.
so if people want to follow you, or if they want to get in touch with you and talk to you and make another Instagram buddy, where can they
yeah.
find you?
It's Grace's Surro Journey with underscores in between Grace's, Surro, and Journey.
Perfect. And I'll put it in the links. That way people can find you.
I've suddenly found myself with 13 chickens. We started last year with 8, and now we have 13. So if you want cute chicken content, you can check out my other page too. But
Real chickens.
real chickens, yeah.
Do you use them for the eggs?
That's what we got them for. We moved into this house a year ago and it came with a chicken coop. So we're like, oh, well, let's put chickens in it. So I ordered 8 chickens because that was the minimum order at mypetchicken.com.
Oh my
And
gosh, stop.
They're going to get flooded now. MyPetChicken.com is going to get flooded with people
Oh my
ordering.
God.
Watch.
well, they're a wonderful company,
love it.
which I discovered when I had to reach back out to them because one of the hens I ordered started crowing.
Oh,
And it
Like
turns
a
out
rooster?
it is a rooster. Yeah.
Oh,
So you order hens, but sometimes a rooster slips in there. So we ended up with a rooster,
is
and
that
then we allowed, like, if you collect all the eggs right away. I know this is not surrogate. Well, no, this is a surrogacy story. You can put this
yeah.
in there if you want. Okay. So hens will sometimes display this behavior called broodiness, where all they want to do is sit on eggs. Even if you're collecting the eggs all the time, if you collect them all the time, whether they're fertilized or not, they won't develop, as long as you collect them and put them in the fridge. But sometimes eggs want to be, or not eggs, the hens want to be broody. They just want to sit on eggs. And with how hot it's been, I can't just let my hens sit up in the nesting box and like steam themselves to death. And then they stop taking care of themselves. So we have to break them of this behavior by kind of isolating them for a few days. And then they forget what they were doing and they go back to live their normal life.
Oh my God.
So one of our hens, Norma, would not stop being broody. We tried, we isolated her for a few days. She just wanted to go straight back up in the nesting box. And my daughter asked me if we could give her an egg and let's see what happens. And I thought, okay, well, like, what's one more chicken? Sure, one more. We could do one baby chick. We gave her 2 eggs, kind of to go back to like the old school surrogacy days. Like, what if one doesn't work out? So we gave her 2, and when hens start to go broody, they stop producing their own eggs. So we had to give her another hen's eggs to sit on. And so this is another hen and the rooster's eggs. She sat on them for 3 weeks, and we ended up with one hen. So she's a surrogate hen. She's raising her baby. And then my daughter and husband went to the feed store while I was out of town for work just to get more chicken feed and came home with 4 more baby chicks. And the surrogate mama adopted them all. And
Do you
so
love
now we have 5.
that? But she
said she
adopted
loves it.
them all.
Yeah, so she's raising them all. I think that she's kind of over the assignment. Every morning she's ready to go. We keep them inside at night, and in the morning she's done. She's out the door, she's ready to go. She wants to do her own thing, but she'll still snuggle them all at night, keep them
That's
safe.
I
precious.
love it.
Look at that.
That really was a very cool segue to the end of this podcast. That really was.
No, hens are surrogates too. It's totally
Yes.
fine. I love
Yeah.
it. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Grace.
Thank you.
This has been beyond lovely. I know we've gone
Yes.
a little bit over, but thank you so
Yeah.
much.
No,
Yes,
thank you for your
so
time.
much for having me. Have a
And
good
you-
night.
You
Thank
too.
you, you
Take
too.
care, Grace.
Bye.
Good luck November 8th.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Sweet.
Oh, she's so graceful. Like,
Yes. Yes.
well done on her name, because like she is just Grace.
And she just walked through that when that happened to her. And I know it's very painful. I understand that. But just the way I don't know, just her calmness in speaking about it. You can really tell she's worked through it. Like that, yes, it's something
There's
that
that
happened.
peace.
It's not going to define her. Yeah, it's not going to define her. She's going to continue on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. I think it's great.
She brings a sense of peace,
Ah,
and it's
and how sweet to be available to talk to others who might be going through this. Like,
yeah.
yeah, it takes a very, and you're very sweet and special, Grace. So thank you so much.
So much. Well, if anybody has any stories or if they have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Stop.Sit.Surrogate. And this has been another episode of Stop.Sit.Surrogate with Kennedy and Ellen. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Take care.